And we're back. Welcome back to the station. So tonight we have Ryan Quarles, a candidate for governor for the state of Kentucky, and let's bring him in. We also have my guest Bob Scott and my co-host, and we're going to interview Ryan and just talk about his campaign and why he's running for governor. And first of all, Ryan, you saw the WLAX story there on the debate, and looks like there were a lot of arrows flying back and forth, and I think you were trying to duck those, and I think successfully did so. But what are your thoughts on that? Is that the style of debating we should be having in a Republican primary in this state right now?
Well, thanks for having me on. First off, when I launched my campaign about a year ago, I made a promise to the people of Kentucky that we're going to run a governor's race that's based on who has the best ideas and not the biggest insults. I think it's so important that Kentuckians get a leader who's going to lead with big, bold ideas, and one that's going to focus on the issues that are affecting Kentuckians. You know, my mom taught me to be a gentleman when I was growing up, and that's the same sort of decorum and temperament that I bring to this race as a candidate. That the more infighting Republicans have right now, only thing it does is help Andy Beshear get reelected. We need to have somebody that unites the party, somebody that who gets along with others and can build consensus so that we can win in November.
Yeah, well said. So, and at this point, you know, there's 12 candidates running for this office or running for this Republican candidacy.
That's right.
And you're in the top, I think the top tier of that. But so what do you think about it? Obviously, Cameron's a front runner. Kraft's, I think, showing closely behind, and I haven't seen your polling yet. But what are your strengths? And do you think you can pull ahead and make this happen? What's unique about your candidacy versus the more established names in the race right now?
Well, the only poll that I'm worried about is what's going to happen on Election Day on May 16th. I think polling right now is all over the place, and it has proven time in and time out to be inaccurate. We also know that the turnout is going to be very low. We are one of only 3 states with a gubernatorial contest this year: Kentucky, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And in Kentucky, we suffer from low voter turnout. We believe there may be as few as 300,000 Republicans actually vote this May. And so what makes us uniquely qualified to win this is that I'm the grassroots candidate in the race. For the past 8 years of my life, I've crisscrossed the Commonwealth as your Commissioner of Agriculture. I know rural Kentucky very, very well. And we have a grassroots operation that I think just about everyone would agree is second to none. And so I believe that our grassroots strength will show up on Election Day and carry us forward. Secondly, I'm the only candidate of the 12 that has a natural base. That would be the farm community of Kentucky. It's not just farmers, it's also rural folk that I know very well. And so they're parked in, they're backing me, and they're enthusiastic to vote. The third thing that I think that really sets me apart from the pack is that I have 8 years of running the second largest executive branch agency in Kentucky, only second to the governor's office itself. I have a record that I'm proud of. We've cut the budget 5 times. We've run the department scandal-free. And as a former legislator, I have a great working relationship with the Kentucky General Assembly. Right now, the governor is suing the General Assembly whenever he doesn't get his way. And with over 90 vetoes, we need a governor who's going to sit down and have long-term thinking and not 1 year or 2 year thought cycles. But how can we transform Kentucky into the best version of itself?
Well said. So that's a strong case for how you may win the primary, but how will you win the general? How are you going to go after Andy Beshear? What's the first of all, you know, why is Andy not ideal for this state, and why are you the ideal candidate going forward?
Well, Andy Beshear was the accidental governor. He barely won. I've got to remember back in 2019, I, along with several other people won by double digits. I won by 20 points. Winning 117 of 120 counties myself. I actually received more votes than Andy Beshear did on election night in 2019. So number one, he is a vulnerable governor. Kentucky has become more Republican. We've always been conservative, but we're voting more Republican right now. And secondly, I'll be able to run the score up in these rural counties in ways that the other candidates may not be able to due to my rural farming roots. And so I believe a fall election won't necessarily be a Republican versus Democrat field. It's going to be rural versus urban, and we're going to have a lot of friends in the urban areas come on board as well. And with 230 plus endorsements so far, including 1/4 of our judge executives, 25 plus members of the General Assembly, and over 100 magistrates, I know that we have the grassroots infrastructure that Andy Beshear does not have. And we also need to remind Kentuckians about the damage that he did to our state during the COVID lockdowns. He shut down our economy. He shut down Main Street, Kentucky, but let the big box stores stay open. There's thousands of mom and pops, including our restaurant community, that are gone forever due to his unfair lockdowns. Number two, he kept our kids out of the classroom longer than necessary. Now our test scores have plummeted across Kentucky, and that hurts every family, and it hurts our school children with their futures ahead of them. And then let's not forget that the biggest violation that occurred during COVID was the violation of our constitutional rights when he ordered state troopers to our churches on Easter Sunday to harass Christians. That simply was unconstitutional. We got to remind Kentuckians about the damage that was done due to his edicts. And let me just remind you of just one statistic. At one point, there were only 4 states that had a mask mandate: New York, California, Massachusetts, and Kentucky. One of these states is not like the others. And we have to remind folks that he took it to the extremes.
Very, very well said. I'm anxious to ask this question to you as well. I'm going to have Bob follow up. But, you mentioned the urban-rural, divide. That's, that's a nationwide phenomenon, such as here in Kentucky. But there's a lot of folks. I mean, let's say half our population lives in our major cities in the state. In Louisville and Lexington and Bowling Green. Yet we have very strong Democrat mayors there, and there's the conservatives are folks that have more traditional values, and especially on cultural issues are starting to really question, how in the world can we live in these cities? What's going to happen? And it's not healthy. You see a lot of people leaving Louisville for other areas, more rural areas, which, that's a nationwide trend, but still, you definitely see it here in Louisville. Downtown Louisville is becoming a ghost town. Businesses I see more for lease signs than I see for open for business signs. And so, what can a governor and what can state, political influence, what can be done to help rein in some of the these liberal mayors and these Democrat mayors, the excesses that are going on in these cities that are just really destroying these cities? And so what could you do as a governor to maybe help Louisville, help Lexington, survive?
I would encourage your listeners to check out ryanquarles.com to check out our Bold Ideas plan. We actually have a plan just for the city of Louisville. It focuses on 3 things. Number 1, law and order. There is a violent crime problem, not just in Louisville, but in Lexington and some parts of rural Kentucky, to be honest, that we need a governor who's going to stand up, support, and fund our men and women in law enforcement. And that's what you're going to get out of me as a governor of Kentucky. Number 2, that we need to address the homelessness situation in Louisville as well. That, in fact, there are homeless shelters that are not at capacity. And a lot of these homeless camps are underneath state-owned roads. And so underneath the previous mayor of Louisville, Mayor Fisher, they just ignored the problem. I want to be proactive about it and give these folks the resources they need, whether it be an ability to get back to work, or if there's mental health issues, let's get them addressed and get them in a better position. Number 3, infrastructure and education fixes. We've got to fix the educational opportunities in the city of Louisville, as well as give choice to our parents and their kids as well, and make sure that Louisville, when Louisville is safe and secure, the rest of Kentucky is safe and secure as well. And so if there's anything that we can all agree on, whether you're Democrat or Republican, is that we have got to cut down on the violent crime that's keeping people away from downtown Louisville. And look, the Kentucky Derby is one of the most majestic days that Kentucky has. We want to make sure that every day is like the Kentucky Derby in the city of Louisville, and that includes working with law enforcement. And the last thing I want to mention is that if you are a criminal, If you are conducting acts of violence, if you are selling drugs or poison into our communities, whether it be rural or urban in Kentucky, there should be consequences. You should be sitting behind bars. If you sell fentanyl that results in the death of a Kentuckian, you should be charged with homicide. This catch and release fantasy has run its course. That there needs to be consequences. And for those suffering from addiction, I'm going to be a second chance governor that wants to put the resources behind giving folks a second chance to go through recovery. It doesn't work for everybody. Well, let's get them back to work and back into the workforce as well.
Yeah, well said. Bob, you want to follow up on that, or
Yeah, no, I would concur with what was just shared that we right now are. It's really a hidden epidemic that's going. Well, not really hidden anymore. It's right on the forefront as far as the fentanyl issue and the other drugs that are pouring into our state and killing hundreds, if not thousands, of folks on a yearly basis. And it's really it's a national problem. And obviously, a lot of that stems back to what's happening right now at the border. You know, and as far as your administration is concerned, just wondering what are you looking at with regard to that, Commissioner Quarles? As far as I know, there's only so much you can do, but that is a problem. And I know, and I've heard a lot of other states are taking more of an active role to try to start stemming and doing what they can to slow that aspect of it down. And I live in Shelby County, which is a rural state, but we're borderline Jefferson County and Franklin County, and there is a lot of immigrants that are really relied upon, from an agricultural standpoint. And I know you obviously being the Commissioner of Agriculture for our state, see the importance of that as well. So it's sort of a balancing act, and I think the key, in my opinion, is to make sure that the ones that should not be coming into our country, that is stopped. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first off, we have truly no leadership from the White House right now when it comes to the open, porous border between the United States and Mexico. That's where a lot of our drugs are coming from. A lot of criminal activity, gang-related, is coming across the border. We need to have safe and legal immigration and a secure border. My grandmother was a World War II bride. She immigrated here from Australia after meeting my grandfather, who was a Marine in World War II. She had to wait in line. She filled out the paperwork. I assume she went through the background checks, and a lot of change has changed from now. But it's a slap in the face to everybody who has immigrated here legally and properly when people just walk across the border. What we as Americans need to know who's in our country. It's a national security issue, and unfortunately, it's where a lot of the drugs are coming from. So as governor, I will call Governor Abbott down Texas as well as the other border states and say, how can we be helpful? Do you need members of our National Guard to help you? What can our law enforcement community do to team up with your law enforcement community to help prosecute gangs and drug cartels as well that may be seeping up through our interstate systems here in Kentucky? Because we may not be a border state, but we definitely have border state problems.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I got to say this too, Tom. Commissioner Quarles brings a very diverse background, that I think in many aspects is well suited to be a leader in our state. As he mentioned, he did serve in the House of Representatives for our state, so he has a lot of great ties, got a lot of great relationships there. Obviously, he had talked about what he had done, as the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I think he's done a phenomenal job there. But I know that you have a background that not a lot of Kentuckians could say that you actually went to Harvard, and spent some time there as well as I think Vanderbilt and also University of Kentucky. How do you feel that diversity of background is going to really position you to lead our state?
Well, the first school that matters the most to me was the school of my parents growing up on our family farm. That's the one that means the most to me. Going to church as well. And so, look, I was really blessed to go to the University of Kentucky, go Cats, as well as pick up some graduate degrees from Harvard and Vanderbilt. But But look, at the end of the day, I'm more of a street smarts type of guy than book smart. And I think it's important that we have somebody who not only gets along with other people, that wants to build relationships. And look, having a disagreement on policy is okay. That's healthy when it comes to the policy making process. But I think that I'm the leader that can bring my educational backgrounds with growing up in a small family owned business. And that's what farms are. They're family businesses, to make sure that our state is thinking about how we can transform ourselves long term. For example, we have a plan to make Eastern Kentucky a nationally recognized tourist destination in the entire country. Let's do it. God made a beautiful part of our state. Let's make it an attraction. Number two, let's be smart about the assets we have in our state. Let's be a sustainable aviation fuel hub of the United States, making jet fuel out of soybeans. We grow $1 billion of soybeans every year. No one else is talking about this. I also want to be the governor that fixes our broken adoption and foster care system in our state as well. We have 8,000 kids looking for a forever home. And quite frankly, the stories that I hear, that it's too expensive. The wait is too long to adopt. I ran into a couple this past week who live in Kentucky but went to Arkansas to adopt because the paperwork and the cost was just too high in Kentucky. These are the things that we need to fix. I'm tired of our state ranking last in things that we should be ranking first in. That there needs to be a sense of urgency. That I was blessed to have opportunities that perhaps other people may not have had in life, but I'm choosing to spend my life in the public career sector because I know that our state can improve on each other, and we need to have a governor that has that mentality for us to improve, not just kick the can down the road.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Commissioner. We've got a clip here from a debate you had last week on WCPO. We're going to play that real quick, and it's you're commenting on small business and how you would model small business in Kentucky, which, let's face it, business needs some help right now, right? We're in a recession. Let's face it. If it hasn't hit you yet, it will. Inflation's hitting everybody, and so I'm really curious about what you had to say here. So let me get this teed up, and we will play it. And there we go. 1 second, and full screen it, and there we go. And I actually played the wrong one. So there we go. Let me get so you got two clips here. Play the first one, Tom. There we go. Okay.
Candidate Quarles.
Donald Trump brought in a big swath of America that felt forgotten about. As I travel Kentucky, I visit all 120 counties, President Trump brought in a lot of folks that otherwise felt disenchanted. And so I think that's a lesson learned, to make sure you listen to the people. I've met with him multiple times. He's appointed me on a couple of task force, including rural infrastructure across America. But I think some of the lasting legacies is a revived court system. He also challenged the D.C. establishment. I also think that it's important to look back at what he did for the economy as well before the COVID lockdowns, that our economy was restored. We have record low unemployment across the way. And so one thing that I would like to bring to the governor's office was his one-stop shop approach. When it comes to businesses looking for permitting or moving to Kentucky, we're going to provide you a shepherd so you can navigate the labyrinth of Frankfort, Kentucky, just like he did in D.C.
Great stuff. So there we go. We certainly need that. And we've got about a minute left. So you have any comments on that, on your comment? Comment on your comment?
Yeah. Again, check out our bold ideas at ryanquarles.com. We want to make sure that we streamline government. We need to bring a customer service attitude towards state government. Then we're going to remind folks that government works for you, not the other way around. So whether it's checking in on a permit or what's the impact of a regulation on my business, you should get your phone call or email returned that day. We've done it at the Department of Agriculture. We also want to make sure that if you are a Kentuckian or a Kentucky business, that we make doing business in our state as easy as possible. And before any regulation is enacted, we need to study the economic impact on that to the economy as well. We've done it at the Department of Agriculture. I like to say that we are a customer service agency, and I would like to bring that same sort of attitude across all aspects of state government.
Imagine that, running on a fishing government. Wow, that's a, wouldn't that be great for the state? Well, listen, Commissioner Quarles, we really appreciate your time, and we just wish you Godspeed in your campaign. And folks that are watching, we have some great candidates in this race, and we certainly have a solid option here with Commissioner Quarles. And so we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, and anything else we could ever do for you, let us know. And we'll be back. We're going to have Mike Harmon on next. So you're watching the station.